Joins us. Great to speak to you. So who's actually gaining from Syria's breakup?
That's very important to remind people all the time. The Israeli state does not have fixed borders. They are not delimited on a map. They can expand all over from the Sinai to near the borders of Iran one day, and that's the problem. This idea of Eretz Israel, Greater Israel, is the number one impediment. If they would sit down on a table to discuss Palestine, they will have to delimitate their borders. Finally, this is what everybody's expecting. They will not be able to annex people's territories anymore. Nothing is corroborated historically, in fact. This is let's put it this way, a wet dream. In the case of southern Lebanon, in fact, it's because of water. There's a lot of water in southern Lebanon, and Israel needs water. So we go back to, it's the water, stupid. This explains everything that happens in terms of Israel trying to annex southern Lebanon.
Yeah, it's strange. We're now seeing those same dual citizenship politicians who pushed the US into Iraq disaster back on our screens.
The return from the living neocons, which never disappeared. Paul Wolfowitz came back dead like he was a Michael Jackson video extra this past weekend. CNN plugging, what else? War Middle East. Nothing has changed. The false flags and all those crazy stuff happening 12 years ago in the run-up to the war in Iraq. The difference now, it's crazier, mad world, as we were discussing, much faster and out of control, because we know if anything happens in Syria, even Kissinger already said that many times, Syria is the fulcrum in the Arab. Whatever happens in Syria spreads all over.
Spreading all over the region, unrest in Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Egypt. Tel Aviv's already granted gas fields in Syria's occupied Golan Heights, reports in Telehub, to a company of Rupert Murdoch, whose media are currently banging Syria's war drums. The book questioning the war on terror notes chaos may be good for Israel's expansion, but the US just gains new enemies. The book's author joins us, Dr. Kevin Barrett. Great to speak to you. How can US policy be against its interests?
Traditionally, the Democrats got more than two-thirds of the campaign contributions that flow into their federal elections from the aggressively pro-Israeli faction. And that was earmarked with, support for Israel was the condition of taking that money. A clean break document was issued by Benjamin Netanyahu and the neoconservative, mostly Americans who also happen to be dual citizens, people like Wolfowitz and Pearl, Scooter Lip, all of those people. And this document proposed regime change in these Middle Eastern countries, essentially overthrowing all of these independent Middle Eastern countries and imposing imperial control. These people really do want to create Greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates. Israel, working with its Saudi partners, underwrote this coup d'etat against the first democracy ever in the 5,000-year history of Egypt. The indications are that they're going to keep stealing territory. Not only will they refuse to give back the Golan Heights, they're going to take Sinai. They're already creating all kinds of instability in Sinai. They came right out and said that what they want is 3 little mini rump states in Syria.
Yeah, an Israeli general said Syria's part of a new axis of evil. Is that fair?
Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the hardliners here in the U.S., who are in the pockets of both parties, primarily the Israelis, are the real axis of evil.
But it's not going as Washington planned. Since U.S. invasion, Iraq's become a best friend of Iran. For 2 years, Obama has said Syria's president must go. He's still in place. And Middle East reporter Sharmin Nawazi notes even the destabilization isn't really succeeding. Nawazi interviewed international doctors and aid workers in Syria who say there is no deep humanitarian crisis, no real lack of food or medicine. Yet Common Dreams notes while Obama goes around the world trying to regime change, back home the streetlights don't work. Sharmin joins us. Great to see you. Are people in the region actually grateful for what the US president's doing?
US popularity was at 1% in Egypt because the US will lose. The more its allies, who were just monsters, Israel and Saudi Arabia and Jordan, that can't even be called a state anymore. It's a parking lot for Western and Gulf troops,
Yeah, but surely a world superpower can get its way.
It's a dead word, superpower. It just isn't true any longer. And it's not a bunch of countries getting together against America. It's people wanting to live. You will never win against people who have more self-interest in tomorrow than you do. Never, and we've seen this in every U.S. intervention from Vietnam on Iraq. You have tribal Afghanistan. These aren't the last breaths of empire because no strategic-minded power ever reacts this way in such complex and sensitive situations otherwise. Backing the very same Salafist extremists who they were attacking in Syria and in Iraq and Afghanistan, this smacks of desperation and what I call short-termism, because they're so eager to gain a win in any way, shape, or form, and looking at military solutions as the one-size-fits-all solution for all their problems. And mentality of militarization does tend to permeate into one's society as well. And you are seeing an undermining of freedoms and democracy in these countries, and you're seeing the rise of surveillance states in many of them too, using the threat of terrorism, which is far less in any of these countries than car crashes or airplane crashes, to justify all kinds of surveillance on their own populations. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to humiliate themselves. There is always the last battle for any empire throughout history, and I think that is it for the United States and its allies.
The end of this elite's imperial ambitions, notes Veterans Today, will first and foremost benefit the US people, bring back their prosperity and rights. But growing numbers fear before the empire goes, it could take the rest of the world out with it. Seek truth from facts. This is The Truth Seeker.